Mr. Meeks of New York is recognized. He's the ranking member on the subcommittee on Europe and Eurasia for 5.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Secretary, it's so great to see you, and I want to first commend you and all of the diplomats under your charge for the tremendous efforts of the State Department to ensure U.S. security and prosperity in these challenging times globally. Through your skilled advocacy around the world to rebuild partners and to reliable partners and bilateral engagement, you're making indeed America a safer and a stronger nation. I also want to thank you. We have within our office a Pearson Fellow by the name of Nancy Cohen, who's a Foreign Service officer, and she's done a tremendous job and just exemplifies the great people that you have in the Foreign Service. Now, there's too many questions to ask, and time is limited, so I'm going to ask some questions later that we'll put down for the record. But before I get to the questions, I also want to preface my statements by an overarching concern with the current budget that has been proposed by the Republican majority. The current administration inherited a geopolitical reality riddled with anti-Americanism. Now that our reputation is being restored and there is such an opportunity for positive change, is this the time that we really want to pull back funds that support critical programs and initiatives? This is more than just, in my opinion, penny wise and pound foolish. It is downright dangerous to our national interests. And, you know, when you talked earlier in regards to Europe, even though they were tightening their belt, you know, they are also putting more money into foreign aid. And one of the questions I would have is the partnership that we have with Europe, whether or not, you know, there's a prestige, whether or not we then begin holding up our end of the bargain when we're talking about foreign aid. Which brings me to the specific points of, you know, almost half of the funding being cut from the population, refugee, and migration budget. You know, I'm deeply concerned about vulnerable populations like Afro-Colombians and the indigenous that Mr. Famio Vega was talking about that live in the crossfire of conflicts that are not of their own making, and where we lose any of the progress that we've made to make their lives more secure as a result of our own hemisphere or our own hemisphere more secure. So my question, Madam Secretary, is since the United States is a leader in protection of displaced populations, what impact could funding cuts for the Migration and Refugee Assistance account have on assistance of refugees overseas? How could reducing funding for assistance and programs that serve forcibly displaced populations impact the United States' interest in such areas as Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Sudan? And what are the major concerns the Department of State has regarding the consequences of drastically reducing assistance to refugees?
Well, thank you so much, Congressman, and thank you for raising the refugee assistance issue. The United States has been, and I hope will remain, the leader in dealing with refugee challenges, internally displaced people, people fleeing from conflict, and it has been one of the areas where we're able to claim that we put our values into action because we're there on the ground. You've been in refugee camps. You see the USAID big sign there. You know what it means to have experienced development experts who provide the base for a safe place, whether it's in Eastern Congo or from a flood in Pakistan or in Haiti or anywhere else. So this is a particular concern that we be prepared to continue the humanitarian work that undergirds a lot of what people know about us around the world. Now, I fought to be sure that when we go into these post-conflict, post-disaster situations, the United States brand is front and center. You know, there was, when I got there, a feeling that maybe we shouldn't be, so to speak, trumpeting our own horn. My attitude is, it's the American taxpayers that are putting that money out there. If people don't want American aid, if they don't want USAID and our programs to be there helping them, then we won't be there. But if they're going to take it, then we're going to be advertising it. So I think it's a big part of what we're doing, because what I found as I started traveling around the world is that a lot of people don't know what we did. You know, they said, well, wait a minute, you know, the Chinese are doing this and the Saudis are doing that and, you know, the so-and-sos are doing this. I said, yeah, and we've got more money in there than those guys combined, and we're going to get credit for it. So it's not only doing the right thing, which should be the primary reason we do it, But frankly, I want to build the American brand again so that when people get food, clean water, shelter, they know where it came from. It came from the generosity of the American people. And so this is, for me, a big issue, and we're doing even more to try to get that message out so that we can be the leader that I think the American people, with their generosity, want us to be.
Let me just ask this. I know you won't get a chance to answer, look at the time, but the other concern that I wanted to raise was the Northern Distribution Network and how effective it has been for the U.S. efforts in Afghanistan, and what can be done to utilize the network to improve U.S. relations more broadly in Central Asia. You know, again, with Mr. Famio Vega and being on this trip recently with him, we haven't connected with all of those countries. It's such an important part of the world.
Absolutely. That's a big part of it. Thank you.